After finishing Alexis de Tocqueville's Democracy in America, I had one overwhelming reaction. A book written nearly 200 years ago still feels absolutely explosive today. Tocqueville spent just about 1 year visiting America, yet his insights into American democracy and the European revolutions are still astonishing. His intellectual depth and analytical clarity would still stand out in today's world. Yes, even in today's America. Let me share a few quotes to show you what I mean. From Part 1, Chapter 5. Centralized administration may give momentary brilliance to one man's rule, but it does nothing for a nation's long-term prosperity. In America, it's not one person obeying another. It's everyone obeying justice or the law. From Chapter 9, in the Middle Ages, it was hard to catch criminals, but when they were caught, they were tortured brutally, and yet crime rates didn't fall. Later, people realized that the more secure and humane the justice system was, the more effective it became. The American judiciary's power to declare laws unconstitutional, though strictly limited, is one of the strongest defenses ever created against legislative tyranny. From Part 2, Chapter 6. America's strength lies in its ability to make mistakes and then correct them. It's obvious that democracy in America often puts the wrong people in charge, and yet the country still thrives. That's a miracle of American democracy. The true value of democracy is not that it makes everyone rich, but that it protects the interests of the greatest number. Yes, we now live in a world with fast global communication. It's far easier to understand America today than it was 200 years ago. But still, this book gave me new information, new perspectives, and deepened my understanding in ways modern media can't. Let me briefly share a few of my reflections. Reading this book made me realize that America is not just the most powerful democratic country in the world today. It was also the pioneer and teacher of modern Western democracy. Yes, you heard me right. European democracy, in many ways, learned from America. America adopted its constitution in 1787, establishing a framework of checks and balances, where Europe at the time was still largely under monarchical rule. Democratic revolutions were rare and unstable. Tocqueville's own country, France, had just gone through the Revolution of 1789 and was deep in political chaos, radical factions, the Reign of Terror, the rise of Napoleon. France went through wave after wave of unrest. When Tocqueville set out to study America in 1831, France was in the middle of the July monarchy. He wanted to understand what made American democracy so stable. What could France and Europe learn from it? To be clear, the theory of democracy was born in Europe, and the spirit of the laws, but the first country to really implement it in a comprehensive way was the United States. Tocqueville and his companion, Gustave de Beaumont, spent nearly a year traveling across multiple U.S. states. They observed courts, prisons, city councils, churches, interviewed people, collected first-hand data. What made Tocqueville truly exceptional wasn't just the amount of material. It was the depth and precision of his thinking. He could cut straight through the surface to the heart of a system. He began the book by analyzing the geography and the social origin of the American population. Unlike some other countries, where aristocracy had long ruled, America, the first settlers were not nobles. They were poor people looking for opportunities, or religious dissenters seeking freedom. They arrived equal in status and carried with them the seeds of a democratic spirit. This was especially true in New England, where educated and religious Puritans settled. Meanwhile, in some countries with long history, centralized monarch had centuries, if not millennia, of bureaucratic structure behind them. Breaking free from that was a much more violent process. In contrast, America was like a startup country. No legacy system, no baggage, able to adopt the newest democratic ideas from day one. Tocqueville noted that American democracy started at the township level. Imagine the early settlers clearing forests, farming, then banding together to form communities. They used democratic discussions to manage their affairs, gradually forming towns, then states, and eventually the Federal Union. So democracy in America wasn't an afterthought. It was baked in from the beginning. Tocqueville praised many other aspects of the American system: the jury system, freedom of the press, and most fascinating to him is the culture of voluntary associations. To a Frenchman, the sheer number of American civic organizations was mind-blowing. Tocqueville realized that in a democracy, individuals are weak, but through organized groups, they become powerful. He showed that as democracy advances, the techniques of association must also evolve and multiply. And one of the most groundbreaking insights in the book, Tocqueville was among the first to deeply explore the concept of the tyranny of the majority. Yes, this had been mentioned earlier in the Federalist Papers, but Tocqueville elevated it into a systemic warning. How can we prevent the majority from crushing the rights of minorities? One major solution he admired was judicial independence. He wrote, "In the United States, the legal profession is the strongest force capable of balancing democracy. In fact, it may be the only force capable of doing so." The deeper you look into American society, the more convinced you become of this. In the second half of the book, Tocqueville turned his attention to art, architecture, religion, commerce, literature, examining how democracy shaped all aspects of daily life in the human spirit. If you have read this book or are planning to, drop a comment below. Let's discuss. This is one of the most eye-opening works I've ever read about American democracy, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts.